What's up, your boy Vaughn, another reaction. In today's video, we have when it's 2023 and then 8 seed starts terrorizing the NBA. Yeah, that 2023 finals is forgettable though. I don't remember that finals, my nigga. Cause didn't Miami only won one game against the Denver Nuggets? Like nobody talks about this finals, but this run that the Heat went on, it was crazy though.
In May of 2023, Miami Heat applied to trademark the word culture. Not Heat culture, not Miami culture, just the single word, culture. Yeah, it's tough to wrap your head around it. In the sports world, the term culture is white noise. Coaches use it, players use it, and talking heads use it. But defining it in 25 words or less is virtually impossible. It's a generic piece of jargon that everyone throws around. Each team has their own version of it. When they're winning, it's the great invisible force behind their success. When they're losing, it's the hidden source of dysfunction that's preventing them from winning basketball games. It's not statistically measurable, empirically provable, or even objectively observable in any way. So when the Heat applied to trademark the word, you'd expect there to be an onslaught of jokes, or at the very least, a day of pointed
That's crazy. They trademarked that word, the
jabs
word culture.
on NBA Twitter. But in reality, there was none of that because it was May of 2023 and the Miami Heat were in the middle of a shocking run that was making us question everything we thought we knew about playoff basketball. We still didn't know exactly what culture meant, but in light of what we were watching, that trademark didn't seem ridiculous. At the beginning of every season, the Heat put their players through the toughest conditioning test in professional basketball. It starts with 5-17s, ran at a minute pace, with only 2 minutes of rest between each. There are two main results from it. The first is that players almost certainly hate Eric Spoelstra for at least a couple days in the offseason. But the second, and most important effect, is the fact that Miami is always the best conditioned team in the league. And they didn't deviate from that standard in 2023. Coming off a 53-win season that came one shot away from the finals, the Heat were supposed to be a great team again, and defensively, they were. They finished top 10 in defensive rating, top 5 in steals, and looked like everything you'd expect from a Spoelstra-led team. Their offense, on the other hand, was more of what Miami fans would call a never-ending nightmare. They averaged the lowest amount of points per game, and most half-court possessions were as fun to watch as a dental procedure, and it wasn't hard to explain why. It wasn't the roster. That was mostly the same as the year before, when they had one of the better offenses in the NBA. There were a couple of prolonged absences from Kyle Lowry and Victor Oladipo, but nothing cataclysmic, and there were no key departures to blame it on. The exact cause was ambiguous, but the stats told a clear story nonetheless. For one reason or another,
Well, I feel bad for Miami Heat fans. Like y'all niggas be rumored to be in talks and trade talks to get this nigga and get that player, but it never end up happening. Y'all niggas was supposed to get Damian Lillard, Clay Thompson, like all these was rumors, and this shit never happens.
the Heat forgot how to shoot. They went from the best shooting team in basketball to the fourth lowest three-point percentage in the league, and no one was immune to it. Max Strus and Caleb Martin's percentages fell by 6 points. Duncan Robinson's fell by 5, and Kyle Lowry's decreased by 3. Dramatic drops were littered all over the roster, and when they limped into the play-in, that trend continued. Miami lost to Atlanta by 11 points in a game where they shot 32% from beyond the arc. They rallied in the next game to beat the Bulls and secure a playoff berth, but the point remained the same. When push came to shove, the Heat couldn't make shots, and a team that struggled to knock down open looks was going to have a tough time winning any series in the playoffs. On top of that, Miami wasn't going to play just anyone in round 1. They were playing the first seed in the East, the Milwaukee Bucks, led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday, a trio that won a championship only 2 years ago thanks to a defense that made good shooters look pedestrian. All of that hard work wins games talk was cool in the regular season, or the second half of the play-in, but there was no room for sports movie magic in the playoffs. Of all the major sports leagues, the NBA's postseason is the most brutally predictable. Higher seeds win
This shit had after this had Giannis. He did.
75% of the time in the first round, and only 5 8 seeds have ever won a series. They were still the Heat, the same team that had been a force in the East for a few years now, and they always had a trick or two up their sleeves. But this time, they need a miracle to pull this off. Then game 1 tipped off, and 1 quarter into it, the door cracked open just enough to make you consider believing. Early in the second quarter, Giannis Antetokounmpo came down hard on a drive and injured his back, forcing him to miss the next 3 games, and Miami took advantage. They didn't win all 3, but Miami took a 2-1 lead thanks to a couple great performances from Jimmy Butler, some solid contributions from everyone on the roster, and then there was the inexplicable trend. They were making shots again. In their game 1 win, they shot a scorching 60% from 3, and in the next 2, they shot well over 40% from deep. For Milwaukee, it was the most frustrating start imaginable, but even in spite of their opponent's torrid shooting start, they were 1 game away from evening it up, and now Giannis was back. If they won game 4, home court advantage would be theirs for the rest of the series, and through the first half, that looked likely. The Bucks were up by 7 at the break, and Giannis and Brook Lopez
Bucks be so ass without Giannis.
were all over the floor, but there was an issue lingering in the opposing box score. Through 2 quarters, Jimmy Butler had 24 points. They weathered the storm so far, but Butler was nearly on pace for 50, and teams don't normally win when they let an opposing star score half 100 points. Thankfully, Milwaukee had Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton, and one of the best rim-protecting duos in basketball behind them. The team was assembled with this kind of defensive stand in mind, but on that night, against that man, none of that mattered. It was surreal. Every time the Heat found themselves in a hole, Jimmy Butler would rattle off 6 in a row. His mid-range pull-ups weren't touching the rim. He was getting to the paint wherever he wanted, and if the moment called for a 3, he'd calmly step into one.
Jimmy do be flopping though, I ain't gonna lie, but Jimmy strong as hell though.
Even with prime Giannis Antetokounmpo on the other side, Jimmy Butler was the best player on the floor. He finished with a franchise playoff record of 56 points while only missing 9 shots, and he followed it up with 42 points to close out the series in Milwaukee. Miami had completed the seemingly impossible task of upsetting the #1 seed in the East in only 5 games. Under normal circumstances, this would have been a breaking point. Everything from the importance of the mid-range jump shot to the value of the regular season would have been reconsidered, but there was another, easier explanation right in front of us. Playoff Jimmy. He denied it in the post-game interviews, but there was no one question about it. Jimmy Butler is one of the premier playoff risers in the history of basketball, and this series was no different. Regardless of what the regular season made us believe, Butler was able to tap into something else in the postseason. Some state of mind that allowed him to surpass every supposed limit he had, and that was it. The Heat beat the Bucks because of a ridiculous shooting hot streak, some injury luck, and playoff Jimmy. Next round was less of a
But why nobody bring up injuries though? Like with them beating the Bucks, that was a first seed. Oh, they niggas should be like, oh, they beat the Bucks, that was a first seed, but niggas was injured though. Y'all bring up injuries with every other series.
theoretical hurdle. The Knicks were a good team.
Niggas be glazing the fuck out of this Jimmy Butler run, but niggas don't be bringing up how niggas was injured though.
But the team was largely based around one player. If Miami could keep shooting the way they were shooting, or if Jimmy could give them a couple more iconic games, they move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. In Game 1, that mostly happened. They shot well, but not amazingly well, and Jimmy Butler gave them 25 points and 11 rebounds. It was enough to secure the
Glad to see the Knicks finally got over the hump.
Game 1 win. The only problem was Butler had sprained his ankle. He had to miss Game 2, and without him out there causing havoc, the Knicks evened the series up. Now Miami had 2 chances at home to build up a commanding lead, and we knew what to look for. A hot streak, a Butler masterpiece, both at the same time, one after the other. It didn't matter. That was the formula for success, and if they didn't get either of those things, New York would take control. Then Games 3 and 4 came around, and they got neither, but they still won both. It wasn't that Jimmy Butler didn't play well. He played like a true All-NBA talent in both games, but he wasn't putting up 50 or even 40, just 2 really good playoff games. And in both of those games, the Heat shot under 35% from deep. It didn't make sense. There were no anomalies to point to this time. They were simply better than the Knicks. New York rallied at home in Game 5, but in Game 6, the same thing.
Good dunk. Yeah.
Happened. Butler played well, but not amazingly well. Miami went 7 for 27 from 3, and they still won. The explanation had to change again. It wasn't a hot streak or strictly playoff Jimmy. It was momentum. They were playing defense, making shots when they had to, and they had a closer they could trust, so they were playing with more freedom. It wasn't team spirit mysticism or one individual transcending the chains of reality. It was psychology. They were riding a hot streak of previously unseen magnitude. In the conference finals, they ran into the Celtics, the same team that knocked them out by one possession the year prior, and the favorites to win the East for the second year in a row. Tatum and Brown were coming into their own. Al Horford was still Al Horford, and Marcus Smart was 1 year removed from winning the Defensive Player of the Year award. On paper, this was supposed to be their toughest challenge yet, but through 3
Yeah. What? Yeah, they was the last team in the East to win the championship. With OKC, the Spurs, is we ever gonna see another East team win a championship? Like we probably ain't gonna see that shit for a while. Everybody, but I'm going with the Knicks beating the Spurs. Everybody got the Spurs gonna sweep them niggas. I'm telling you, I got the Knicks. I ain't gonna lie, I'm going with the Knicks to beat the Spurs. I love underdogs. I'm not gonna lie.
games, it didn't look that way. In Game 1, Miami won on the back of a Jimmy Butler masterpiece and an otherworldly shooting exhibition. That checked out. Then in Game 2, the shooting dropped, but Butler delivered. Bam Adebayo nearly had a triple-double, and Caleb Martin went off with 25 points. Alright, the last part was a little hard to explain, but it's still tracked. They were riding some temporary wave that would continue to lead them to victory until someone was able to get in the way. And Game 3 was no different. Butler struggled this time, and in response, 3 guys stepped up. Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, and yet again, Caleb Martin. The Heat shot over 50% as a team from deep and grabbed an overwhelmingly 3-0 lead. It was some kind of energy that was growing exponentially with each positive outcome, an incredibly bizarre phenomenon, but one that was enabled by exterior circumstances as much as interior factors. Giannis got hurt in Game 1, and Jimmy went off. The Knicks didn't have a supporting cast around Brunson yet, and Miami was already feeling confident, and now the Celtics were underperforming while the Heat kept rolling forward. It was physics applied to metaphysics. An entity in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by an opposing force, and right now,
I used to have braids, but so them braids make your ass go bald. I don't get braid. I don't get my hair braided no more.
force was nowhere to be found. But in Game 4 of a series that seemed over, it showed up.
Look at what the shit did to Jaylen Brown.
Boston's first win didn't seem like much. Jason Tatum had a great game, and the Heat shot horribly. It happens. Sweeps are rare anyways. Game 5 was a little worrying, but still similar. Butler had a quiet game, and 4 of the Celtics starters scored 20 points or more. 3-2 was a far cry from 3-0, but whatever. They still had a chance to close things out at home. Caleb Martin kept up his ridiculous stretch with 21 points and 15 boards. And as a team, they shot 46.7% from 3. Then when they were down by 7 in the last minute, they turned to Jimmy Butler, and he put his cape on. First he nailed a 3, then he got to the line, then an and one. It was an avalanche. With each bucket, the crowd got louder. An entire arena decked out in white shirts, standing on their feet, almost willing a Miami sports moment into existence. And as they did that, the Celtics started unraveling. They were missing free throws, missing layups, stalling out in every way. Finally, with his team down 2 on what seemed like the last possession of the game, Jimmy Butler dribbled to the corner, went up for 3, and got fouled. He hit 1, 2, and then 3, and the entire building erupted. They had a
Jimmy got an insane motor. I'm not gonna lie.
1-point lead with 3 seconds to go. Marcus Smart put up a 3 that went in and out, but right there, just as the whole state of Florida shouted with joy, Derek White broke the spell.
White will inbound. It's off to Smart for the 7th game.
Oh, yeah, I remember this shit. Yeah, I remember this shit.
But the buzzer sounded. The light was on. It'll be reviewed.
Everyone stood around confused. Boston celebrated as Miami remained confident that it wouldn't count. And then the replay came on the Jumbotron. There was no argument. White got the putback off with 1/10 of a second remaining in the game. The Celtics stormed back from a 3-0 deficit, won Game 6 on an all-time miracle, and the series was heading back to Boston for Game 7. That was it. The equal and opposite force. A devastating comeback punctuated by the most improbable putback imaginable. Whatever happened in Game 7, positive momentum would have nothing to do with it. In the first quarter, both teams came out a little tight, like most Game 7s, but Miami ran out to a modest lead thanks to Jimmy Butler, and you guessed it, Caleb Martin. Then they built onto it in the second because of pretty much the same two guys and hot shooting. This was weird. They were making threes. Butler was playing like a superstar, and now Caleb Martin was too. Maybe it was
Oh my gosh, Caleb Martin, bro. What that nigga at? Nah.
all the formulas combined, or maybe none of them at all. No one had an answer. Miami just ran away with it. They closed the Celtics out in Boston by 19 points after the most heartbreaking loss imaginable. And the best player in the game, and arguably the entire series,
Pat Riley
was Caleb Martin. There was no rational explanations left. They were heading to the NBA Finals, and in that next round, they found a hurdle that was too tall. They ran into a generational talent armed with the same kind of camaraderie around him, and for once, they had no answers.
Bam couldn't do shit. Come on, Bam. Bye.
Nikola Jokic
Better Bam ought to buy you some new legs. Yeah, that's your nickname. Somebody said that shit on TikTok.
had counters for their counters, and
Your boy Bam getting cooked.
shots they couldn't contest. They'd fallen 5 games to a Denver team fueled by one of the best offensive players ever. But as bitter as the end was, it didn't take away from what happened. The 2023 Miami Heat didn't win at all, but they were the second 8 seed in NBA history to make it to the finals. And they did it in a way no one can make sense of. Timely hot streaks, stars playing like superstars, and role players finding new levels to their game. They were a constantly adapting group of tightly knit people, enabled by some kind of invisible force to overperform at exactly the right times. And even when it ended in defeat, there was only one thing anyone wanted to talk about: culture. As far as we know, the Heat are still battling for that trademark, and it doesn't seem like there's any end to litigation in sight. In the end, they might not get it. A word that general could be a step too far.
Damn.
But if any
Yeah, that's a general word. You can't trademark like that's a people say that a lot. Like
team in professional sports deserves it. It's the one who had every basketball fan in the world questioning the fact.
yeah, y'all not getting that trademark, to be honest. Y'all niggas suck now. So maybe during this time y'all probably would have got it, but now y'all trash. I'm not gonna lie. If y'all made it to the play-in, but y'all niggas need to make a big trade. It's time to let Tyler Hero go, bro. It's time to let Bam drop it, but it's time to let Bam go. Like y'all niggas need to. Y'all got some good rookies. The Jamie Vasquez, the Mexican, Kellen Ware. Y'all got some 2 good young players. You know what I'm saying?
Fabric of reality itself. To be honest, we still aren't exactly sure how to define culture in the world of sports. But in
Tyler, I ain't gonna lie, Tyler Hero, he's still hooping. Tyler Hero still be hooping. I ain't gonna lie.
May of 2023, the Miami Heat made us believe it exists.
So make sure to come subscribe and I'll do this. What the fuck? What the fuck?